This is a Faith FM podcast. You're listening to The Faith Experiment with Robbie Berghan, right across Australia, right here on Faith FM.
Hello there, and thanks for joining once again. I'm Robbie Berghan, and you're listening to The Faith Experiment. And this is episode number 44 of The Faith Experiment, and I'm calling this episode, Brad's Story, When God Speaks. Now, once again on this episode, I have a great book to give away. This book is called Gifted Hands. This is an incredible book. It's a book about Dr. Ben Carson, who gained worldwide recognition for his part in the first successful separation of Siamese twins joined at the back of the head. It's a fantastic read. You want to get this for your library. So to get this book, you'll need to text a code word I'm going to give you during the show. You'll need to text it to the Faith Experiment phone number. And here's the number now, 0488 453 11. So save this number in your phone, 0488 453 11, and just wait for today's code word. Well, once again, I love hearing from you on the Faith Experiment, and I am just so impressed with the amount of text messages I get on this show. And I would love to hear from you today. Where are you listening to the Faith Experiment from? Right now, wherever it is, around the world, around the country, text me in, let me know, 0488 453 11, or email me on robbie@faithfm.com.au. Now, I want to jump into my inbox for a second and share some of the comments I've got from various faith experimenters all around the country. First one here is from Sharon. Sharon has texted in saying, "Thanks, Robbie, for your show. I love reading my Bible every day, and thank you so much for explaining 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16 and 17. That was amazing, especially the part about reproof. May God bless you and keep you. Thanks for the program." If you missed that episode, go check it out on the Faith FM app, and you'll be able to tune in. It's in the section on how to study the Bible. So thanks so much, Sharon, for that. I really appreciate your feedback. It's great to know that what we're doing here at Faith FM is making a difference in your personal faith experiment. Here's another one from Jane. Jane texted in saying, "Thanks, I love listening to the Faith Experiment, one of my favorite shows." Well, thanks so much, Jane. We appreciate it. It's support of listeners like you that keep our show going. So thank you very much. Here's one from David. David says, "I love the book, Bible Readings, with the 4,000 questions that you've given me." Well, thank you so much, David. We are so thrilled to be able to give away our stuff. We don't ask anybody to pay for anything. It's absolutely free. It's a part of the ministry we do here at Faith FM. And I'm so glad you're finding that book a blessing to you. Here's one from Sally. Sally says, "God bless you, Robbie, and thank you so much for your teachings. I absolutely love them." Well, thank you, Sally. Love that you're tuning in. And I hope you're enjoying the new podcast we're doing with the interviews. Here's one from Jan. Jan says, "Love the show, Robbie. Keep it up." Thank you, Jane. We will continue to keep it up as best as we can. Here's one from Keith. Keith says, "Good morning. I've been listening to the Faith Experiment. I'm up to episode 16. Thank you." From Keith. Well, thank you, Keith, from checking it out. You got a few more episodes to go before you catch up, but I'm glad you're enjoying it. Here's one from Ross. Ross says, "I'd like to say thank you to Robbie's SMS bot." Well, thank you, Ross. I'll pass that on to the bot. I really appreciate the work of our bot. We've got 3 of them, actually. We've got Hudson, we've got Pilgrim, and we've got Faithful. And they help make sure you get your offers through in a timely fashion. So we appreciate it. Thanks, Ross. Here's one from Fraser. The last one for today is from Fraser saying he's from Kangaroo Island in South Australia, and he is enjoying the show, and he is interested in the topic, the mark of the beast, that he listened to. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We'll cover some more of those really deep Bible study topics in the future on the Faith Experiment, but go check out the Faith FM library. We have got plenty of talks, and some of them will cover that as well. Well, if you're tuning in for the first time today at the Faith Experiment, this show is all about putting faith into practice. It's about experimenting with faith. And so far, I have shared with you, for those of you catching up, I've shared with you my own personal journey, how I went from a non-believer to a faith experimenter. And then we've looked at various ways to study the Bible and to enhance your application of these ancient manuscripts. Now, on the last episode of the Faith Experiment, I had an interview with Alicia, who shared her story of how God saved her daughter to save her. An absolutely amazing story. If you haven't heard it, I'd encourage you once again to go get the Faith FM app from your app store, or go visit faithfm.com.au, look under the podcast sections, and look for the Faith Experiment, and you can check out those episodes. Well, on today's episode, I have another special guest. As you can tell from the title, my guest is Brad. Brad, welcome to the Faith Experiment.
Hey, Robbie, it's great to be here, mate. I'm stoked to be on a show with you.
Yeah.
Finally.
Finally. I've been working at Faith FM for 2 years, and we've finally made it happen.
That's right. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Now, for listeners, just say something, Brad, like you're listening to Faith FM. Say something like that.
You're listening to Faith FM on 87.8, 87.6, or 88 FM right across Australia.
Now, if you feel like you've heard that voice before, it's because you have. You see, Ooh. Brad, what do you do at Faith FM?
So I am a producer, and that can involve all sorts of things. Every day can be a bit different. Where you're most likely to have heard my voice is on things like ads, and I'm sorry if you get sick of hearing my voice on ads. There's certainly a few of those floating around. You know, different intros and outros for shows. Sometimes I fill in as a producer on a show or a presenter if I have to. It's just whatever needs to get done.
We absolutely love what you do, Brad. Like, for those who are listening, Brad is a producer at our Melbourne studio. We have studios in Newcastle, in Sydney, in Adelaide, in Hobart. I think that's all of them. And
at the moment.
At the moment. We've got one coming in Canberra, probably in October, coming online. And Brad is the top producer in terms of he oversees all the other producers. You help the producers with any challenges they have. You give tips and feedback on the shows. So Brad is our go-to guy. He's the glue behind the scenes. And so it's so great to put you on a show. I'm really excited for today.
Well, I try and keep everybody else in line, but I guess you'll be trying to keep me in line today.
We'll do our best. But you are actually, listen to this. While Brad is doing this interview, he's actually producing this episode. So he's sitting in front of all the controls, and he's going to be telling the story. So you're going to multitask today, Brad. So, Brad, how long have you been at Faith FM for?
Ooh, it has been halfway through the 5th year, or maybe the 6th year.
And you're based here in Melbourne?
Me. Yes, based in Melbourne.
Are you originally from Melbourne?
No, I am a Newcastle boy.
Newcastle?
Yep.
So did you come to Melbourne before Faith FM, or was it for Faith FM?
It was for Faith FM, and there's a long, interesting story related to that as well, but that's not the one we're telling today.
Right.
Maybe.
We'll see how we go. So you've been here for a few years now. What's your take on Faith FM? What do you like about it? What's the highlights?
It's, that's one of those things I want to give serious thought to. Look, I love working here. I love the fact that what I do on the day-to-day is something that directly engages with people, that it can be something that can help them grow in their faith, encourage them in their day-to-day life. In terms of the content stuff we hear, like things like health content, I love learning things. And I love listening to a lot of the health shows and going, wow, here's how I can actually improve the way I live, improve the way that I think, improve what I eat, all those kind of things, as well as, improving my relationship with God. I'm big into the whole improvement thing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean I do it all the time, but I find it very interesting.
So we're paying you to source content, to create content that's enjoyable to you.
Absolutely.
So it's not really a job.
Well, it's still a job.
So you're married?
Yes, I'm married to one wife.
One wife? Just one? That's all you can handle?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't want more than one, I think. Yes, and she's a teacher here in Melbourne. She works at a school on the east side of the city in Lilydale that's called Edinburgh College, and she teaches English and Bible. She used to teach French. She's actually a fluent French speaker.
Wow.
Yes.
And can you speak French?
Je parle un petit peu français.
Yeah, well, I heard France in there somewhere.
I speak a little bit of French.
Okay. So can you say something like, how are you today? What would that be like in French?
Comment ça va, monsieur?
Wow, I'm assuming you're pretty good. We'll get some listeners to text in. If you speak French and you're hearing Brad here, let me know if he's got the accent right or not, because I have no idea.
You just got to do lots of and then you sound very no, really. That's the French equivalent of
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so comment ça va aujourd'hui, monsieur?
It sounds legit to me.
Well, it's pretty basic. It's a useful thing to have for if you want to talk about something without anybody else knowing.
Yeah. My wife, I think I've said this before on the show, my wife is former Yugoslavian, so she comes from those. My mum's Macedonian, her dad's lived in Croatia, Serbian, there's a whole mix there. And so she speaks 4 languages. I speak one. And she's constantly complaining to me when we're in circumstances. She's like, if only you spoke another language, we could be talking. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't that rude? She's like, no, that's just clever. So you guys can do that.
A little bit. Look, I'm not saying I'm fluent in speaking French. I can definitely understand more than I can say.
Yeah.
So it's more like, if we're in a restaurant, for example, and the food's not great, Bianca can say something to me and I'll go, oh, yes, mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting we're talking about languages because today's story is about when God speaks. It's got me intrigued. I know a little bit about what we're going to talk about, not a huge amount because I want this to be news to me too. But before we get into that, we're going to take a short break. We've got some songs here that we've picked out today and you have picked them. What's our first song, Brad?
So our first song is called Strongest Love by Gavin Chatelier. And the reason I picked this one is because I actually know Gavin. He actually worked for Faith FM. Some of our listeners may know this. He worked for Faith FM a couple of years ago, doing some similar sorts of things to what you were doing, Robbie. And he shared some of his music with me, and I really enjoyed it. And, I've always loved music that I have a connection with the artist.
Right.
To me, it's like having them in the room there with me, singing a song, and I can just sit back and close my eyes and enjoy it.
So we're going to hear Strongest Love by Gavin Chatelier.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Oh. There's no love like God's love, my one love, darling. His love is the strongest love we can depend on. When we see things differently, well, there's a mountain we need to climb. When the road takes a bend, never really expected, we'll pray for His strongest love. There's no love like God's love, darling. His love is the strongest love we can depend on. When everything falls into place, I can see that smile on your pretty face. When nothing can stand in our way, may we never forget to pray. We'll pray for the strongest love. There's no love like God's love, darling. His love is the strongest love we can depend on. Sometimes the plans we make just don't work out. We've run ahead of here. One thing I know, with your hand in mine, life's ups and downs ain't so bad. You and me and Jesus, we'll catch our dreams. We'll catch our dreams. Whoa, there's no love like God's love, my one love, darling. His love is the strongest love we can depend on. There's no love like God's love, my one love, darling. The strongest love. There's no giving up with His love, darling. The strongest love. There's no giving up with His love, darling. The strongest love. There's no giving up with His love, darling.
You're listening to The Faith Experiment with Robbie Berghan, right across Australia, right here on Faith FM. Connect with us via text message on 0488 453 111. That's 0488 453 111. Or send an email to robbie@faithfm.com.au.
Welcome back to The Faith Experiment. I'm your host, Robbie Berghan, and that was Gavin Chatalia with Strongest Love. And this is episode 44 of The Faith Experiment, and I'm calling this episode Brad's Story, When God Speaks. And coming up is the code word for today's free offer, so make sure you stick around. So I'm here with Brad. Brad is one of our, he is our Faith FM producer here in Melbourne, the head office, but he's one of the producers around the country for Faith FM. And Brad, you said before the break you've been in the role about 6 years?
Yes, it's the 6th year this year.
And you're a husband of one wife?
Correct.
You guys are snooping and spying with French language between the two of you?
Yep.
Any kids?
No, we don't have any kids, but working on that.
Working on that. We'll encourage you to be fruitful and multiply.
Thank you.
Well, Brad, we're here for your story, and your story you've titled When God Speaks. So set the context for us.
So this was, let me think, when I was 19.
So just a few years ago.
Just a few, well, let me think, how old am I now? Well, I'm 29 now, so yeah, so 10 years ago, it's a decade. When I was 19, I was a Christian. I was involved in music at church, all that sort of thing. I love playing all sorts of instruments. Anything I can get my hands on, I'll fiddle around with it till I can figure out how to play it. That's one of the things I really love doing. But I was always involved in church music and that sort of thing. One of the things our church was often involved with is we would take our band that we had and we would go and play music at what were called summer camps. Have you ever been to a summer camp?
I have. I've been what they call a camp counselor.
Ah, yep.
I've done that a few times.
Nice.
Yeah, in the United States, not in Australia, but in the United States I've done it.
Okay. So the summer camps that we would be involved with, they would typically go for a bit over a week. Mm-hmm. Let me explain how summer camps go. You have all the kids, typically high school age. You also have junior camps, which are primary age. Kids go up there for a week. We do lots of worship, lots of cool activities, water skiing, rock climbing, mountain biking, archery, anything under the sun. Really, really fun stuff. For those in the know, we used to do ours in a place called Yarrahapinni.
I was going to ask you where was this camp? So Yarrahapinni, that sounds like Aboriginal.
So it's about halfway between Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour. So on that kind of north coast of New South Wales.
That is a nice part of the world. I used to live up there.
Beautiful spot.
I used to live in Coffs Harbour. For those listening in Coffs Harbour, I know exactly where you guys are. And if you go I think it's about an hour south of Coffs Harbour. That's where I think it's near Stewart's Point, around that area.
Point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Very nice part of Australia.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Beautiful beaches, beautiful climate, heaps of bananas to eat.
It's changing now though. It's changing the blueberries.
Oh, really?
Blueberries and I think raspberries. A lot of banana farmers have pulled the bananas out in that region. Yeah. Anyway, continue. We're at a summer camp.
That's right.
About 19 years of age.
19. Yeah, that's right. We can't get too off track. Anyway, so I got asked if I wanted to sing for summer camp. As a 19-year-old, I was in my first year of university, that sort of thing. And these camps go over like the summer holidays, I guess. So I was thinking to myself, oh, sweet. Yep. Summer holidays. I'm going to go and work, get a bunch of money, first year university student. Just
curious. What were you studying?
I was studying at the time civil engineering.
No way.
Yeah.
I never knew this.
Well, now you know.
That's what I first studied, civil engineering.
Yeah.
Wow, that's why we get along so well.
Maybe. Well, I quit civil engineering because after a while I went and talked to one of my lecturers and I said to him, so what do you actually, when you're working as a civil engineer, what do you actually do? And he said to me, Brad, do you enjoy sitting in front of a computer all day? And I said, oh, I don't know. And he goes, well, if you're an engineer, that's probably what you'll be doing. And I was like, oh, well, maybe this isn't for me. Anyway, I loved the physics aspect of engineering. That was great. But the maths I did find kind of difficult. I said to myself, I probably don't want to be sitting in front of a computer all day. And, today in terms of what I do, I do still sit in front of a computer all day. But it's good. Anyway, I'm not complaining. I think God had reasons for directing me in certain paths and why I ended up doing what I'm doing. But anyway, so I was doing civil engineering. wanting to make myself a bit of money, working different jobs. I was doing cleaning, working at Big W, mowing lawns. When you're 19, you've got heaps of energy to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so that was my plan. I was going to go out, make a bunch of money during the holidays, buy a bunch of musical instruments, synthesizers and cool stuff. And instead, I felt God directing me saying, no, what I want you to do is go in and be involved in these camps. Go and sing. That's what I want you to do. And so I was like, all right.
Were you a singer?
Yeah.
Okay, so this wasn't like a big stretch.
No.
It's just in terms of you had a plan of what you wanted to do.
Yep.
And you're getting an impression that, no, I want you to do something completely different, but it's still within the realm of what you're able to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
cool. All right.
And this wasn't like I didn't hear God speaking verbally to me then. Mm-hmm. This was just kind of like I could feel a particular pull at my heart saying, this is where I want you to go and do.
So how did you know it was God? This is a question I get asked all the time. How do you know when you know it's God talking to you and not God talking to you?
That's a good question. And I would honestly say it's a very personal thing. For me, there's several ways I feel God communicate to me. One is it's often he will be telling me something that goes very much against my own desires, something that requires me to be very unselfish. Because, as a human being, our natural desire is,
for sure,
how can I help myself? How can I serve myself? Whereas when God speaks to you a lot of the time, it's, no, how can I serve others? How can I put others before me? That's when Jesus breaks down the 10 Commandments and he says, you love God with all your heart, your mind, soul, your strength, and you love others as you would love yourself. That's one aspect. There's another way that I find God communicates with me is he brings different people from different areas in my life who don't know each other, so they can't coordinate.
Yeah, there's no collaboration.
There's no collaboration going on. And they all give me the exact same advice. This can be 4 or 5 different people who are just completely disconnected. Often I find that that's actually God communicating to me because it's something that, it doesn't really make sense. How would all of these different people know what's going on for me?
Well, that's exactly a principle of the Bible, right? Like the Bible says God speaks through a multitude of counselors.
Yes.
That's where we get wisdom, and that's what you're describing when unrelated people, but they're giving us the same spiritual advice. And like you said before, the first thing there is it's clearly leading us away from our natural, carnal, sort of fleshly, selfish desires, and it's taking us in a direction that's in the character and harmony with God. So clearly you had a plan. You wanted to work, get some money, buy some muso gear, I guess you'd call it.
Some cool
I'm not a muso guy, but I can use the term musos. That's what it sounds like you are. And you're getting this impression that, no, I need you to go do something that is completely unselfish.
Yeah.
I need you to go and to this camp. So how did you respond to that?
Maybe I could say in a sense it's not completely unselfish because it's fun. So I just thought, whatever, I can work some other time, but yeah, let's go and do this time. It'll be fun. And, I'll be hanging out with mates from church in the band and it's fun performing for the kids and stuff. And, there's a bit of a pride aspect that certainly goes along with it. It's like, oh yeah, our band's good enough that they've asked us to be the musos and yeah, how cool are we? Maybe I wasn't being, even though I was called to be unselfish in one way.
As in not getting the money.
Yep.
But
Perhaps.
There was still an opportunity here for you to have a bit of ego.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep. It's cool to be you're the lead singer.
Oh yeah,
in the band,
for sure.
Everybody's looking at you and how good are you?
And they always come up and chat to you after in between songs and things.
That's right. Yeah. And for lack of a better way to describe it, when you're a 19-year-old boy and you got a bunch of girls looking at you, it's like, yeah, how cool am I?
Yeah. Got the factor.
The chicks love me,
So you make the decision to go. Mm-hmm. You put all this gear in the car, I'm taking it, and you're heading up the coast to...
We had this awesome Holden station wagon that we called the Gigmobile.
The Gigmobile.
Because me and my brothers and I, my older brother was playing bass guitar. Actually, no, my little brother didn't come with us that time because he was still in school. But other times we've gone and played stuff together. We filled up this old Holden station wagon with all of our amps and guitars and all sorts of things. And, you see the ones where it's kind of like
the back wheels,
the tow bars almost escaping along the ground.
I can picture that.
That was what it was like.
You had a plan, make some money, something comes along, a thought, you're saying you sense that it was God, and looking back, you can see it was God calling you to do something that, okay, you weren't going to Africa. You weren't going to, go starve yourself and be a missionary or anything, but this was something that you could have made some money out of if you hadn't done it, so on. So you get in the car, you've made a decision to go along, and you're heading up the coast to camp, and we're going to pick it up after the break.
All right.
What comes next?
Sure.
So we're going to take a short break now. Stick around. We've got a code word for today's amazing book. Now, Brad, you picked this book, Gifted Hands. It's by Dr. Ben Carson. It's basically his story.
Yes.
Why did you pick this gift?
Because when I was a kid, I read this book, and it really changed the way I thought about a lot of things. Ben Carson, for those who don't know him, he's a neurosurgeon. So, when you think about the brainiest of the brainy guys,
He's
who
up
also works on brains.
He's up there.
Yeah.
There's no one higher on the list.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I found his story really encouraging, really inspiring, also because he's a very humble man. And, to actually be able to be at the top of the game, so to speak, but to actually be humble is something really incredible, I think. And it really speaks to his relationship with God. And for me, that was something that really inspired me to go, it's important to be humble, because when you're humble, God can use you a lot more to bless others. Pride is one of those things that gets in the way of so much.
Every single time.
And, I'm not saying Ben Carson's perfect, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. Like, obviously, this story is showing that I wasn't the most humble person or anything like that.
So that's our giveaway today is Gifted Hands. You're going to get a code word very, very soon on the show, and you'll be able to text into the phone number for the Faith Experiment. Write the number down if you haven't got it. 04 888 45311. Now, Brad, we're going to go to a song. You pick this song. Who we're listening to this time?
Yes, this is another person that I know, another artist that we play a fair bit on the station, whose name is Anna Beeden, and the name of the song is called It's Not You, It's Him.
From faith to faith, oh, I need your grace. It's not my righteousness, but it is yours. Oh, what a state we find ourselves in. And grateful we find you knocking at our door. Jesus, come in and fill this doubting heart. We were dead in our sin, evil within, living for ourselves. But God, being rich in mercy and love, came down and rescued us. Distracted we stray, imperfection we strive to do it on our own. Will help us to realize we couldn't live life, it's in Christ alone. So God, take us, mold us, remind us, salvation is through you. Christ Jesus, so that in the coming ages he might show the immeasurable riches of his grace and kindness towards us in Christ Jesus. For by grace you have been saved through faith. This is not of your own doing, it is a gift from God, not a result of work, so that no one can boast about it. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand, that we should walk in them. Oh, so good. We were dead in our sin, evil within, living for ourselves. But God being rich in mercy and love came down and rescued us. Distracted we stray, in perfection we strive to do it on our own. Will help us to realize we couldn't live life, it's in Christ alone. So God, take us, mold us, remind us, salvation is for you. Help us to understand this truth and live in gratitude. Oh, forgiving, loving, living like you. From faith to faith, oh, I need your grace. Praise God, it's not my righteousness, but it is yours. Well, blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine.
This is The Faith Experiment with Robbie Berghan. Right across Australia, right here on Faith FM. Listen live or listen later. Get the Faith FM app from your app store today.
Welcome back to The Faith Experiment. I'm your host, Robbie Berghan, and that was Anna Baden with It's Not You, It's Him. And this is episode 44 of The Faith Experiment. I'm calling this episode Brad's Story, When God Speaks. And coming up very, very soon is the code word for today's amazing book. And it's a free book. All you have to do is text the code word, which you're going to get very soon, for Gifted Hands, the story of Dr. Ben Carson. Now, on today's episode, I am sitting here with our Faith FM producer, one of our Faith FM producers, Brad. Brad is sharing his story about when God speaks. Now, before the break, Brad was sharing with us how he was about 19 years of age, living in the Newcastle area. He was a civil engineer student, one of the best disciplines you could start in. Having said that, I also I no longer work as a civil engineer, obviously. Brad was sharing with us how he had a plan. His plan was to go off and make some money over the summer break, but instead he felt called to get involved with some summer camp ministry in the context of music. So, Brad, you left us with a picture of a station wagon?
Yes.
Station wagon dragging its tow bar along the road, filled with band equipment. Mm-hmm. You, and it sounds like you had two brothers in there as well.
It was just my older brother
Just your older brother.
Yep.
And you're heading north up the Pacific Highway on your way to go to camp up near Port Macquarie, somewhere up there. Mm-hmm. What happens next?
So, for those listening who might be a singer, you know that when you're actually doing a series of gigs or whatever it is in a short space of time, you really have to take care of your voice. You start thinking about things, I'm going to be doing the honey, lemon, ginger teas every day before every practice. You got to go through and carefully do your warm-ups, all these sorts of things, because it's actually a really rough thing to be singing at high volume levels, hitting high notes, etc., for a week straight.
It's a lot of strain on the vocal cords.
It really is. It's, it's a different sort of thing to speaking on radio. And if you're not used to it, you can really damage your vocal cords. So yeah, there's a lot of practice that goes into it. There's a lot of care you need to take. And so I was doing everything I could to make sure that I was treating my vocal cords as nicely as I could. So, even in some of the songs, you're not going for those super, super high notes that you really have to push to get.
You're pacing yourself.
You're pacing yourself. Yep. So that's what I was doing that whole week. I was trying to be really careful because I wanted to preserve my voice throughout the week. If I felt that God was saying to me, hey, you're here to sing, then it's like, okay, well, I need to take care of what he's given me to sing so I can make sure I can actually do what he's asked me to do.
So how many songs would you sing at a typical camp?
Ooh, per day or something?
Oh, like over the whole, well, yeah, okay, let's start with per day.
Per day. In the mornings, see, it's not just like the actual performances, it's actually all the practices and things you do as well.
Sure.
In the mornings, you'd sing 4 or 5 songs, so multiply that by 2 or 3 when you include all the practices and stuff.
And then you got the evening as well?
Evenings, yep. In the evenings, we'd do bigger sets because, kids love singing songs.
Yeah.
So, it could be 5 or 6 songs.
And then there's the rehearsal for that. And how many days is the camp?
It's usually about 7 or 8 days.
Wow, so it adds up. It's a lot of singing.
So when you multiply that out, it's not exactly like a professional band because, you'd be doing bigger sets each night.
Yeah.
But, when you add up all the practice, and it's morning and evening as well, and morning singing, especially when you've got high notes, is hard.
Yeah, you're all got deep voices, I'm taking it.
Yeah, doing the Barry White when you need to be doing James Blunt type thing.
All right. So you're at camp. You've got a fair bit of singing to do. You're trying to be a good steward. You're taking care of your vocal cords.
Yep.
You're pacing yourself. So what happens?
The way I'm thinking about it is I'm doing everything I can, in a sense, to make sure that I make it through the end of the week and, nothing about what I do looks bad. You get to the last evening of summer camp, and on the last evening, we'd typically do like a big countdown sort of thing. You get the kids to vote on which songs they like the most, and then you play through a big set, 10, 12, sometimes 15 songs. And, oh man, like even thinking about it now, I feel a little bit jittery.
Not getting triggered, are you?
Yeah. Because we got to the end of the week and I had completely lost my voice by that last night.
Oh, really?
And that, in a sense, as a muso, it's like that's the most important night of the week.
Yeah.
That's the big, cool night where all the kids have the most fun. And, that's where we make altar calls and saying to kids, hey,
What's an altar call?
So an altar call is like when you say to the kids, do you want to actually make a decision to follow Jesus?
Right.
Because what we're trying to show kids is that following Jesus is not something mundane. Because I think a lot of kids can feel like that. They feel like, oh, Jesus, that's the weird fuddy-duddy guy that they talk about in the boring church service. And
so you're trying to bring it alive.
Exactly. Trying to
show and demonstrate that it's a living, breathing relationship.
100%.
Right.
Like Jesus is not a boring guy by any ways or means. When you invite him into your life, life becomes more vibrant, more exciting. You experience far more joy than you can ever hope to experience without him. And that's part of what we were trying to communicate to the kids through summer camps. But anyway, so I had completely lost my voice.
And this is the night where all crescendos.
Where it all matters, so to speak. This is where it's all built up to. And I can try and emulate what would come out of my mouth if I would speak. I don't even know if you could hear
you didn't even hear that, it's because he's lost his voice.
Yeah. So trying to speak, nothing coming out. And I was mad.
I can't imagine you mad, though. You're so calm. But this was 10 years ago.
Yeah, well.
So what were you mad about? Why were you mad?
I was mad. I went off and locked myself in a room somewhere, ranting at God, obviously not out loud.
Just to set the context, though, the songs haven't started yet. Like the last set hasn't started yet, right?
No.
Just before you get to doing that, you've lost your voice.
Yep.
And you've stormed off and slammed the door and locked yourself in your room.
That's right.
And what are you doing in there? What are you hoping to achieve in there?
Man, I don't know. It was one of those
Who are you angry at?
I was angry at God.
Why?
Because I was in a situation where I felt helpless to be able to do anything. And I felt that, this was God's responsibility. He was the one who told me, this is what I was ranting in my head to God. Obviously, I couldn't be speaking because I couldn't speak. But it's like yelling in your head, God, come on, seriously. I've done everything I could do to make sure that I protected my voice, and I'm here doing this thing that you've called me to do, and how come you haven't come through for me? And, this is the most important thing, and what's going on? Why did you let this happen? In a sense, was the question I was asking.
So you're blaming God in some respects for you losing your voice.
Because I'd done everything I could do, and it wasn't enough. And at that point, I remember God speaking to me, and I could hear it. And that never happened to me before.
Wow.
And I would struggle to explain what God's voice sounded like. I don't know if it would be different to somebody else as it would to me.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do remember is he said to me, I wanted you to realize the reason I called you to do this has nothing to do with you, but it has everything to do with me.
So wait. Okay, I've got to stop you.
Sure.
You're telling me that you've gone through this experience, you've lost your voice, you're in your room, you're ranting at God in your head because you can't speak.
Yep.
And then you're telling me, you're expecting me and all the listeners to believe that you heard God's voice, like you heard God speak to you.
I don't expect anybody to believe it, but I know.
I'm being serious here. Like this is profound stuff. Like I believe that I've experienced hearing, and I'm not talking like every 2 seconds I'm at the shop what ice cream to buy or what don't buy the ice cream, whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm on the same page with you on this, but that's a big thing to say. I know that what I heard and was communicating to me was of divine origin, whether it's the Holy Spirit, whether it's God, whether it's how that all works. So you're saying that you were, in that moment, you knew it was God talking to you.
I believe that, yes.
So unpack this more. Come on, this is the crescendo here. Unpack this. What happened? How did you feel? Like
that wasn't the end of what he said.
Okay. So back up. Repeat again for me and for everyone listening. What did you sense that God was saying to you?
He said to me, this was for you to realize that me calling you here was not about you.
So you losing your voice.
Well, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about to make me look good. It wasn't to stoke my ego.
Oh, the singing you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. So coming to camp and doing the songs and being involved in the process of leading people to make young people make decisions for Jesus.
Yes.
It's not about you.
Yes. It's not about me. And God said it was about him. That was what I was there to do. I was there to point these
right
kids
now,
to God.
you're telling me this story, right? And I'm actually getting a bit of tingles on me when you're saying that. It's about him. How did that make you feel? Were you still ranting?
No, at that point I was very quiet. And I didn't know what to think. It really struck me. I don't even know what to say. But that's why it's a good thing God followed that up by saying, and this was the crazy part to me, not even God speaking to me.
Okay, wait. I've got to sit down. I am sitting down. I've got to hold my chair. Okay, what's the crazy part?
What God said to me then is he said, now go back and sing.
What?
Yeah.
So you've got no voice.
I have no voice.
You've been ranting at God about not having a voice. It's all his fault. Then you believe that you've sensed him talking to you, saying, "Hey, this whole camp, this whole thing I've called you to, not about you, about me."
Yep.
You go. You're already mute, but you go mute.
Yeah.
You stop
Even muter.
Muter. You're not ranting anymore. You're mute, and then you get the impression to go out and to sing.
Mm-hmm. When God said that to me, it kind of felt like this compulsion. Go back and sing. And so I jump off the floor, pull the door open and I run back over to where the band's all ready to play and that sort of thing. And it was kind of one of those things where I literally had to grab a microphone and step onto the stage as I come through the door.
So were you practicing your voice along on the run to the tent?
No, I was running as fast as I could.
So you have no idea, okay, cool, keep going.
And so basically have to grab the microphone, step up onto the stage, guys start playing music, and I just had to start singing. And so I go to sing the first note, and my voice was back.
No way.
At like 100% strength. And
just like that.
And I was like, what is going on?
So you get okay, we've got to digest this a little bit. You've run back to the stage, the other guys are playing, you grab a mic, you get up. As far as you know, you have no voice. That's why you went there and locked yourself in the door and started raising the fist of God, so to speak.
Yep.
And now you picked up the mic, the song starts, you open your mouth, and it's like, there's no problem.
Yeah. It wasn't just, some croaky notes coming out. It was good. It was like full power,
Wow.
And
so how long does it last? How long like you sung? How long? How many, this is the 10 song set sort of thing?
The 10 big songs where you got to hit all the big notes. And so I was able to sing through all of those. And then after the last note on the last song, my voice was gone again.
No way.
Yeah. So I couldn't even really tell anybody about what had happened because it took a couple of days for.
Okay. So you had the song to do, you had the voice to do the songs. And as soon as you sung the last thing and the songs are finished, your voice is gone again.
Yep.
Okay. pause there. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and we're going to dig into this deeper. This is Brad's story, and we're calling the story When God Speaks. There's a code word coming up for this amazing book, Gifted Hands, right after the break. But before we do, we're going to a song. And the song that Brad has picked is...
This song is one that I was actually listening to at that time. And the song is called For the Moments I Feel Faint by a band called Reliant K. I really love it. It's one of my favourite songs.
Am I at the point of no improvement? What of the death I still dwell in? I try to excel, but I feel no movement. Can I be free of this unreleasable sin? Never underestimate my Jesus. You're telling me that there's no hope. I'm telling you you're wrong. Never underestimate my Jesus. When the world around you crumbles, He will be strong, He will be strong. I throw up my hands, all the impossibilities. Frustrated and tired, where do I go from here? Now I'm searching for the confidence I've lost so willingly. Overcoming these obstacles is overcoming my fears. Oh, never underestimate my Jesus. You're telling me that there's no hope. I'm telling you you're wrong. Never underestimate my Jesus. When the world around you crumbles, He will be strong, He will be strong. I think I can't, but I think you can, I think you can. I think I can't, but I think you can, I think you can. Gather my insufficiencies and place them in your hands. Place them in your hands. Place them in your hands. Never underestimate my Jesus. You're telling me that there's no hope. I'm telling you you're wrong. Never underestimate my Jesus. But when the world around you crumbles, He will be strong. Never underestimate my Jesus. You're telling me that there's no hope. I'm telling you you're wrong. Never underestimate my Jesus. But when the world around you crumbles, He will be strong, He will be strong. He will be strong. He will be strong. He will be strong.
This is The Faith Experiment with Robbie Berghan, right here on Faith FM.
Welcome back to The Faith Experiment. I'm your host, Robbie Berghan, and that was The Moments I Feel Faint by Reliant K. And this is episode 44 of The Faith Experiment, which I'm calling Brad's Story When God Speaks. And coming up just in a few minutes is the code word for today's amazing free offer, Gifted Hands, the story of Dr. Ben Carson. Well, before the break, Brad has dropped a bombshell, actually a couple of bombshells on us. He's told us that in his experience he had when he was about 19 years of age, he lost his voice, thinking he was doing, something selfless for the good work of the Lord, and singing in a band for a summer camp. But in the course of that, you lost your voice, Brad.
Yep, it was gone.
You run off and you have a bit of a session with God, telling him how angry you are, that why did he let this happen? You try to do everything you could and he didn't do the rest. And in the middle of all that, God humbles you by saying,
he said to me, it's not about you, it's about me. And then he told me to go back and sing, and suddenly I had my voice back at full strength.
That's amazing. And then what's even more remarkable is that as soon as you finish singing, your voice is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brad, people are listening to us having this conversation, and they're thinking, how? How does this happen? How does a person hear God's voice? You have to be some sort of, are you a saint? Like, is that why God's talking to you?
Far from it.
So what advice do you have for people that are, in a faith journey and, they're not sure if they're hearing God's voice or they want to know God's will for their life? And what advice do you have for someone like that?
Yeah, look, as you're saying, I'm not a super Christian or anything like that. And I didn't tell this story to people for many years because I felt it made me look like some super Christian. Oh, look, God's speaking to me. How amazing am I?
Yeah.
But when I reflect back on it, I actually realized that God spoke to me in the point when I was at the lowest of the low and when I was being very un-Christian, when I was making it all about myself. He actually had to cut that back in order to help me understand something. I guess I would say, and tying into this whole idea of humility, God can't speak to you if you're making your life all about yourself. If you're full of pride and your own desires, selfishness, God won't impose on you. But if you say to God that you want to follow him and you honestly mean that, and you give him permission to cut away the areas of your life that go against his will, then he will do that. And maybe he will speak to you. I can honestly say I haven't actually heard him speak to me verbally again. That's the only time it's ever happened.
And it's obviously a defining moment, though, for you because you haven't forgotten it.
Absolutely.
So what, in a sort of closing remarks, like what do we do? This is the faith experiment. We're about experimenting with faith. What do we do daily to experiment with faith? I'm not saying we should be expecting to hear God speak to us audibly every single day, but what do we do to have a quality relationship with God on a daily basis? What's your experience been?
I think, again, it comes back to humbling ourselves before God and asking him to use us. And
so that's through like prayer, conversational prayer sort of thing.
Prayer, conversation, worshipping him, sing songs to him, give praise to God. Make your focus those two things that Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Place your focus on those things in what you're doing every day. What does that look like for you? It probably looks different to what it looks like for me. But
be intentional about it.
Be very intentional, and God will find opportunities to work through you and to speak through you too. So, yeah, make your life less about yourself and more about God.
Brad, never have been wiser words been spoken. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Brad. I really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this story or if you've got a moment where God's spoken to you, I'd love to hear it. Text me on 0488 45311 or email me on robbie@faithfm.com.au. And I'd love to share it with Brad. Brad's here, a producer at Faith FM. He'll be able to respond to your texts if we get them in. So we have almost out of time. I'll be really quick here. I've got a giveaway today, Gifted Hands. It's the book about Dr. Ben Carson. If you want to get this book, you text today's code word, #FE44. That's the hash or pound key, followed by FE, Faith Experiment, and number 44, episode 44. Text that to the Faith Experiment number, 04888 45311. That's 04888 45311. As soon as you do that, the Faith FM giveaway bot will reply to you asking for some details. So text that code word #FE44 to 04888 45311. Well, that's all we have time for today. I really appreciate you joining us on this journey on the Faith Experiment. I'll catch you next week at the same time right here on Faith FM for the next episode of the Faith Experiment. I'll see you then.
You have been listening to The Faith Experiment with Robbie Berghan, right across Australia, right here on Faith FM. Connect with us via text message on 04888 45311. That's 04888 45311. Or send an email to robbie@faithfm.com.au and let us know what you thought of this episode. If you have enjoyed this episode of The Faith Experiment, Please help us get the word out by sharing our podcast with your friends and family. And don't forget to like us on Facebook.